So I want to talk about what I'm calling the redemption of Coach Rich Rodriguez and the WVU football program. This is something of a love letter from me to Morgantown and the WVU community in the state of West Virginia. I was born in Morgantown and basically raised there, lived just up the road in Pennsylvania. And so, what is the redemption? I'm going to answer that in a moment. But let's jump back to December 1st, 2007. This is the classic 13-9 game. We know the story. West Virginia had a chance, had already clinched the Big East championship. They had a chance to go on to play for a national championship. All they had to do was beat a 4-7 Pitt team in their rival game, the Backyard Brawl. They lost 13-9. We don't need to rehash that story, but it was a dark, dark day in Morgantown. It was for me, who was a junior in high school at the time. Like this was heartbreaking, being a huge fan, and it was heartbreaking for so many people. And so then shortly after that, Rich Rodriguez left the university to take the job with the Michigan Wolverines. Um, and so much has changed for that program ever since. Um, it's something that it's easy to look back on now and have a little bit of historical revision. It was perceived and still is by many fans in the community like kind of a perceived betrayal. Like, how dare you leave us? How dare you leave home? Which is kind of funny if you think about it now. Like, how dare you ever think you can leave home for a better job or to better your life if an opportunity provides itself? But people in West Virginia care deeply about home and about their state, and so that's something that has just been hard to think. Why did someone, Rich Rodriguez, being a local West Virginia guy, who was an alum, how could he ever leave? Um, as more and more things in the years since has come out about what happened there, some people, have a theory that the real villains in that story and why Rich left are people like Ed Pastalong and Mike Garrison, but that's a different video for a different day. What's really interesting in the history of what's happened since December 1st, 2007, has been really the cultural fallout in a place like Morgantown. Um, this is a state with really a long history of economic exploitation and industry decline, particularly in fields like mining. Morgantown, on the other hand, often was bucking the trend of what was happening in the state at large. Morgantown was exploding in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. There was a thriving student population, all sorts of new businesses and restaurants and housing moving into the community. For WVU, the football team and the basketball team were having some great success. The basketball team was had a Sweet 16 run, which was preceded by an Elite Eight run, and then a few years later there was a Final Four run. And the football team, particularly under Rich Rodriguez, had built on what Coach Don Nehlen had built in the 80s and into the 90s, national championship appearance, some undefeated seasons. And the football team under Rich Rodriguez won several Big East championships, made it to some very marquee bowl games. Athletics was seen as kind of a sign of hope for the larger West Virginia community. It was a symbol of progress and really unity for the state and for alumni who had, moved elsewhere. 13-9 was like all that hope, like it just came crashing to a halt. And Rich Rodriguez leaving not long after, that was just kind of an aftershock that was really hard for the West Virginia community to deal with. And so the success still came after. Dana Holgerson was hired as a football coach. Um, in the interim, they won the Fiesta Bowl under Coach Bill Stewart, and then Dana comes in. They end up winning the Orange Bowl. Geno Smith, Tavon Austin, Stedman Bailey. That era was prolific, a lot of fun. The transition to the Big 12 conference realignment came with a lot of great financial rewards for the program. But Dana's teams, they were very inconsistent. There was kind of great seasons that didn't quite match the highs of Rich's teams, but still great seasons, prolific seasons, but then also just very average seasons. His teams had explosive offenses, but also really soft defenses relative to what the program had seen uh, in previous eras. Soft defenses, but then also significantly sloppy play. Lots of turnovers, lots of penalties, lots of mental mistakes, and data kind of back that up. Something about the culture had changed from Nealon's era and Rich Rodriguez's era. This was no longer a very physical underdog, overachieving program. And fan entitlement and fan frustration kind of took notice of that. Things weren't always great under Dana in terms of kind of fan expectations and kind of morale around the program. Redemption, sure, that came against Pitt. Opportunities like 2009 and then much later, like 2023, they were able to get back wins against Pitt, but still there was a lasting effect from the 13 and 9 game in 2007. And then you get to the Neil Brown era, which I'm not going to say much about, other than I think the best way to summarize what the Neil Brown era has meant for Morgantown and the W community, if I can quote BB King, it's that the thrill is gone. The thrill is gone. Neil Brown was supposed to be a return to kind of the discipline, physical, doing things the right way, kind of a Don Nealon type way of leading a program. And he was a great representative for the team. Absolutely great guy from all accounts about Neil Brown. But honestly, from a fan perspective, and this is a pretty universal summary of his tenure, is that he coached scared. He didn't develop players to be above where they were on their own, and he played not to lose. He never won a legitimate big game or really any game as an underdog in his WVU tenure. There was one, honestly, what we would call a mirage season where they went 9-4 amidst some really horrible mediocrity. And it was hard to watch. They were never ranked in his 6 seasons as the head coach. And honestly, what happened? Morgantown changed. The atmosphere just feels hollowed out. If you go to Morgantown, well, I'll get there in a moment. Before this summer, really, or this spring, like if you had gone to Morgantown in the year 2024 or 2023, you're like, wow, this is different. Morgantown is an exciting place. There's an energy to it, and that just felt gone. You could feel like the life had been sucked out of Morgantown. And so the university itself has gone through some challenges. Student population has been in decline. They've had some financial troubles, cut a fair amount of programs, and they've had some bad PR, honestly. And then for a state with really great people and honestly some really horrible, really undignified stereotypes about the state and its people that's often looked down upon by outsiders, you can really feel when it comes to W athletics that a source of joy has been robbed from them. And so then this brings us to what has occurred now. Neil Brown was let go by the university, and then this leads us to the return of Rich Rodriguez for the upcoming 2025 football season. While he was not the first choice, he ended up becoming the right choice for Ren Baker's administration. And there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of hype surrounding the return to kind of this 2000s era. Pat McAfee has taken every chance he can to highlight Rich's return, be in Morgantown. They broadcasted his press conference when he returned. There's a lot of hype surrounding a return to a more physical and disciplined football program, which is exciting. But honestly, it's cool to see the community forgiving Rich Rod for leaving, and then really for all the man's personal sins on top of that, which is not what this video is about. It's still great to see former players and friends feel like they were never wronged or harmed by him and really have their full support for what he's going to be building in Morgantown. And here's where I get to the point about what I believe this redemption for him and for the WU community is about in terms of Rich Rod's return. I don't believe the redemption is about winning. I don't believe it is about conference or potential at competing for a national championship. I don't think it's about that. I don't think it's about seeing parties in Morgantown back to their glory days or about even increasing student enrollment. I think the redemption of Rich Rodriguez and WVU, it's about reconciling and healing a community. I think it's about reconciling and healing a community. I think it is about forgiving a perceived betrayal from a prodigal son, a local hero, and I think it's about healing a fan base that honestly has been divided ever since he left. I think it's about bringing that little bit of extra hope and joy to a state, to a fan base, to a people who have experienced real economic and social hardships. I think it's about bringing together locals and alums and students from all over the world who find themselves at one point in time in a place like Morgantown, and giving them a reason to be united and to cheer on, the local football team. It's a social opportunity to come together. The redemption, it's about healing a community and it's about joy. And so honestly, Rich Rod's return, it doesn't matter if to I don't think it matters if it doesn't end up in winning, if it doesn't work, if it doesn't result in championships, if the team ends up with stringing together more seasons of losing records. I don't think it matters. I think they'll be able to move on. They'll hire someone else, and the future's the future. I think this is about removing 13 and 9 as the final memory in Rich Rod and WVU's story. And it's about removing 13 and 9 as kind of this symbolic turning point in the economic trajectory of Morgantown, which that's a whole dissertation in and of itself. And I think this gives WVU a chance to move on and to return to being a more serious athletic program. I really believe Dana hollowed it out, and then Neil, with all due respect, he crashed it to the ground. Rich Rod's return, I think it reunites the community and it gives the school and the state community the hope to write their own future beyond just the results of athletic contests. It's just a game at the end of the day, uh, but it gives an opportunity to feel united and supported. The future really is unwritten, and I think Rich Rod's return it's a positive step for the W community to feel like they can be united in writing their own future again.